Hi, everyone. Happy Tuesday. Thanks for joining us today. You just tuned into our live 10 questions with series. And in case you haven't joined us before, on this series, we sit down with business leaders and entrepreneurs to hear about their journeys and the lessons they've learned along the way, of course, to help all of us in our individual journeys too, whether or not we want to found a company. There's lessons to be learned no matter what you're up to right now. So today I'll actually be chatting with Justin Pflanz. He's the founder of Tab Performance, a manufacturer of aftermarket motorcycle exhausts and accessories that distributes in 6 of the 7 continents. We will get into that. We'll discuss Tab's unique business strategy, as well as the challenges that come with global growth and how to overcome them. We'll also dive into why the company decided from the beginning to manufacture right here in the United States, as well as the benefits of a localized supply chain. I know that's something that's been top of mind for all of us amid the pandemic, so we'll dive into all of that and more. I'm super excited to bring Justin on, but before I do, I want to remind all of you that if you have any questions for Justin, or hey, questions for me, whatever, leave them in the comments and we will get to as many of those questions as we possibly can. And if you don't have any questions, then tell us where you're tuning in from. Leave a comment with a hello or a marhaban or a ciao. Tell us where you're tuning in from and we'll shout out right back to you. Now, without further ado, please join me in a very warm, albeit virtual, welcome for Justin Pflanz. Hi, Justin. How are you?
Hey, Kendall, I'm doing well. How about yourself?
I'm doing well. Thanks so much for joining us on this fine summer Tuesday.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Now, I give a little bit of a description of Tab Performance, but I always like to put our founders in the hot seats. Can you give me your elevator pitch?
Yeah, absolutely. So just like you said, predominantly what we do is motorcycle exhaust and accessories. We started out with the Harley-Davidson V-Rod platform, which is one of the smaller platforms of Harley. And since then, we've kind of branched out. We cover pretty much all the current platforms for Harley-Davidson, as well as Indian now, and we've got some Yamaha and a few other makes. And then just this year, we launched Tab Performance Off-Road. It's the off-road segment of our business, where we make and sell accessories for kind of the UTV market, the off-road UTV market.
Yeah, for sure. We're actually going to talk a bit about, sneak peek to everybody who's tuning in. We're going to talk a little bit about how you've expanded the business, beyond Harley into other brands and now into off-roading stuff. So I'm excited to get into that. And I hate to break it to you, but that first question wasn't part of the 10 questions. But if you're ready to get in the hot seat, I'm going to put you there. Are you good to go?
I'm good to go.
All righty. Let's start with question number 1. We talk a lot about superheroes here at NetSuite. And if you're new to NetSuite, just tuning in for the first time, please go check it out. We started a Superheroes of Finance series where we dive into all of the crazy cool things that you guys are doing and how you're superheroes of your own businesses. So go check that out on any one of our platforms. We have 3 superheroes thus far that have come out, with a couple more to come. So go check that out. But Justin, you are actually one of our superhero founders. So can you tell us a bit about Tab's origin story? Every superhero has an origin story. So tell us about yours and why you started the company.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's actually my brother and I, my brother Casey, we're business partners and 50/50 owners. We purchased the business actually back in 2012 when the company was just doing those the V-Rod mufflers kind of back in the start. And we came from a very entrepreneurial family. Our parents had owned and bought and sold several businesses, started businesses growing up. So it's something we kind of had always talked about, and we have very complementing, I think, strengths. So he's, he went to college for business administration and marketing. I did the engineering side with a minor in business. But he's very good at kind of the big picture. He likes to talk. He's more the sales guy. So I don't know why I'm doing the interview, but he's a little more the sales guy. I'm probably a little bit more detail oriented. Kind of like to get more into the nitty gritty of things. And he's probably a little bit more of the risk taker, and I'm probably a little bit more conservative. But we balance our, each other out really well. So, but yeah, I was working in the oil field. I had been in the motorcycle industry for a number of years. My brother had been in the motorcycle industry for a number of years. And I had taken a job overseas working in the oil field. I was looking to come back, and we had kind of been talking about wanting to start or buy a company. And the previous owner happened to be just chatting with my brother one night and said, "Hey, do you know of anybody that's interested in buying? I'm thinking about getting out." And my brother's like, it's funny you mentioned that, because my brother and I have been thinking about and looking for a business to get into, and that's kind of what got the ball rolling there.
So were you into motorcycles before that, or this just kind of matched up timing wise?
Yeah, a little bit of both. So timing wise, definitely it just happened to match up. But in college, I did an internship with Goodyear and worked on designing drive belts and stuff like that for the Harley Davidsons.
Cool.
When I got out of college, I went to work for a company called Lincoln Industries. That's a major supplier to Harley Davidson as well. And so, I definitely had been in and around the motorcycles and the manufacturing industry for quite a while. And definitely something I enjoyed doing. So yeah, it just kind of best of both worlds there.
Very cool. That doesn't count as my second question.
Okay.
I just had to ask. I
Sure.
grew up actually. My dad rode Harleys my whole life. He had several different Road Kings at different times in my life. So I grew up with him on the back of the bike. So just had to ask.
Absolutely.
Okay, so question number 2: how did you go about funding the company, and what are some of the pros and cons of the way in which you kind of went about it? There's so many different ways to fund a company, and as we know, getting VC funding is pretty difficult. So I want to hear about what you guys did.
Yeah, and Camille, you're absolutely right. There's so many ways to go about it, and there's really no right or wrong. It's just kind of what works best for you and your company and what you're trying to do. So we funded it personally with a bank loan and personal finances. And the reason why we did that is we wanted to kind of have complete control and run the business exactly how we wanted to. We didn't want to have a financial investor that wasn't in the day-to-day business operations, putting in their opinion and pushing an agenda that might not have been best for the long-term success of the company. Sure. And I think that's the real benefit of doing it the way we did it, is you have complete control. You're in the nitty-gritty of the day-to-day. You really have a good feeling for what the long-term, the decisions that are going to lead to long-term success. And you're not tied to more of a short-term, strictly financial thought. The other thing too that I think really benefited us is, when you're working with your own money, you have to really be pretty deliberate and responsible with how you're spending that money. When it's not an unlimited or a very large checkbook, behind you, you really do have to be careful. And of course, the downside of that is, I think, probably, especially in the early days, we weren't growing probably as fast as we could have. We couldn't implement some of the things that we maybe wanted to right away, just to budget limitations. But again, that's part of running a business and learning to be responsible.
For sure. It's a give and take.
Absolutely.
What's uniquely challenging about an aftermarket product company like Tab?
Yeah. So, there's a couple things, just like we talked about with the finances, everything's a bit of a give and take. The nice thing about being on the aftermarket side of things is you have a basic template to work with. You've got a stock part that you're replacing. So a fair amount of the design work is kind of taken out of it. You have to have certain things in certain places. Flip side or the downside of that is it can be limiting too. So you're not always able to do exactly what you want to do. And depending on how consistent the OE product is, designing around that, because, our customers, when we sell them a product, they want to be able to bolt it right on and make sure it fits perfectly. And if there's variability on if there's variability on the OE side, they don't care about that. They know the OE part they took off fit. They want to make sure that whatever they buy from us, bolts right up too. So
right,
that
for sure.
Sometimes.
Yeah, I can see that. So, you actually, as you discussed, you expanded beyond just Harleys. Now you're working with, a couple other brands, Indian and Yamaha, and then you also expand beyond exhaust into accessories. You're now doing off-roading accessories. I'm curious to know, what data or market research went into this sort of expansion.
Yeah, absolutely. It's one of those things where, of course, it's a combination of things. We, of course, try to keep our ear to the ground to any industry news, any power sports related news. But I think the big thing for us, probably more than any other thing, is just listening to our customers. It's one thing, you get a guy call up and say, "Oh, you should really make an exhaust for this bike." Well, sure, that's one guy's opinion, right? Because he's got that bike.
Right.
But when we start to hear it 4 or 5 times from different people, that's when our ears really start to perk up and say, all right, well, maybe there's something here. And that's kind of when we dig more into it and take a more serious look at it. And really, it's the nice thing about being an owner-operator and really in the day-to-day and taking the phone calls from customers and stuff like that, is we get to hear firsthand what our customers are looking for, what they're happy with, what they're not happy with. And that's really what drives our decisions for the most part.
Absolutely. Well, it's working. You're now distributing in, like I said, 6 of the 7 continents, both direct to consumer and B2B. What do you get right when it comes to acquiring and retaining both customers and your relationships with various retailers?
Sure. Yeah, I think customer service is huge. And that's one of the things we really try and focus on. We have customers call up all the time and say, what do you recommend for this or that? And we really don't like to push anybody into anything. We kind of try to talk through what the customer is looking for. And we don't really try to hard sell anybody on anything. And kind of our philosophy is, look, they're calling you because they're interested. So help them find the very best solution, even if it isn't selling them the most expensive or even selling them anything of our product. Because if we know if we steer them in the right direction, again, it goes back to that long-term thinking and long-term success. We know if we steer the customers in the right direction, they're going to keep coming back to us. Even if, they don't buy something from us this time, they know that we're a trusted resource that they can come talk to. And then as far as it goes with, that's kind of more of the direct to consumer. When it goes to the dealer distributor side, it can be a challenge because a lot of dealers can view us as a competition, especially early on. And so one of the things we do there is we've got a very strict MAP policy. So it doesn't matter who you buy our products from. It should be the exact same price, whether you're buying it from your local dealership or online through our website. And the nice thing about that is then really it comes down to value add and what that customer is looking for. So, our dealerships, if they can add value by being a local resource that our customers can come to and talk to and say, hey, what kind of exhaust or what kind of accessory do you, is that dealership like? They can be that local resource. And on the other hand, if the customer isn't interested at all in going to a local brick and mortar shop, and they want to buy online, they can buy off our website, or we have other dealers that run online portals as well. And it might just be as simple as, a different dealer carries a much broader range of products, and they like dealing with that dealership. The customer likes dealing with that dealership, and that's where they feel comfortable with, and comfortable with them asking questions. And so, really, kind of comes down to leveling the playing field so that everybody's playing fairly. and then, who's adding value to that specific customer, so we get the best customer end user experience that we can for our customers.
Of course, that's great. I want to take a brief pause here to remind everybody who is tuning in to make sure you leave any questions that you have for Justin in the comments. We will get to as many of your questions as we possibly can at the end of our conversation here. We've got about 5 more questions to go. And if you don't have any questions, then just tell us where you're tuning in from. Give us a hello from wherever you are, and we'll shout out to as many of you as we can. I've seen a couple come through here now, so I'm going to get to these at the end because I want to get through this combo with Justin, but keep shouting out, keep saying hello, keep asking your questions. We'll get to them at the end. Question number 6 here, Justin. What's your most resourceful marketing tool when it comes to reaching your specific customer base? And what advice can you share with other founders and marketing teams from this?
Yeah, absolutely. So, we've tried a lot of different marketing strategies throughout the years. And we still do a lot of different ones, but one of the things that's been the most successful for us is YouTube. And it makes sense if you kind of think about it. So,
yeah,
with motorcycle exhaust, or really any exhaust, it's not only about the look, but it's about the sound. I mean, you can't get sound with pictures and things like that. So,
yeah.
And if you're buying online as opposed to at a dealership or something like that, it's really nice to be able to get that sound clip. We do comparison videos, stock to our exhaust, and some of that kind of stuff. And for us, that's been by far the best marketing channel that we've had. But as far as advice goes, I would say, definitely try a wide, kind of put yourself in your customer's shoes. If you were going to be buying your product, where would you go to do some research, look into things, and then, kind of tailor your marketing strategy around that. But don't be afraid to try things. We've tried everything from mailers to catalogs, and a lot of it, we do a mix of things. But we've seen our best ROI from YouTube, and especially as a small business, you just have to go with, you can't do everything. We have a limited budget. So you got to try things and then just go with what has the best ROI for you. Absolutely. And digital marketing is hard to beat,
Yeah, right. And especially, right now, and especially we saw, an increase in e-com over, the pandemic. And that means that there's more competition when it comes to marketing across digital platforms. So you got to figure out what works for you.
Absolutely.
So what challenges come with running a global company like Tab? You're in, 6 of the 7 continents. I'd love to hear kind of the challenges and the obstacles the growing pains, if you will, that you hit, and what, kind of advice, again, you have for other founders from that.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're absolutely right. International can be very scary for a lot of companies, I think. And it really doesn't need to be. There are challenges that surround it, but especially with today's technology, it's just getting easier and easier. So, as far as specific challenges go, there's always the language barrier, or can be with some different countries, and really making sure that your end user is understanding what it is you're selling, the benefits, the things that they need to know, and then supporting them after they get your product, if they have questions and things like that. But with Google Translate and things like that, there's a lot of things that can really, you don't have to have a staff of translators on hand. Usually, you can work through some of that. Then I would say, the next is just the shipping and the exporting. A lot of customers aren't necessarily familiar with duties and tax. If they predominantly buy locally, and the first time they've ever bought something internationally is from your store, and when that item arrives, they now have to pay duties and tax before they receive it. There could be some challenges around that. But the nice thing is there's software out there, depending upon the platform you're selling on, that can pre-calculate tax and exchange rates too. So, everything we sell in US dollars, but of course the end user is going to pay in their currency, and there's exchange rates and bank fees on their end. We don't charge any fees because we're just accepting US dollars, but their bank will charge fees for the exchange rate, which can be confusing for customers. They think we're charging it, and it's like, we nothing to do with that. That's on your bank side.
Yeah.
But again, it goes back to technology and just finding solutions around that, so you're getting the best and clearest information to your customer, and choosing a good third-party logistics. We use and like UPS a lot, but yeah, and they can be a great resource. So whoever you're shipping with, just reach out to your representative, let them know what you're looking to do, and I think they'd be more than happy to help you.
So you mentioned some backend systems that obviously can help with this. You guys actually implemented NetSuite earlier this year, but what were you running on prior to NetSuite, and how did that kind of present those barriers to growth and some of these issues these challenges that you mentioned as you continued to scale?
Absolutely. So yeah, we were with QuickBooks Desktop previously, and it was a great system, but as we were growing, it was becoming limiting in some areas that NetSuite's really helped us kind of overcome. So a few of the things that really helped, we were running into user limits. So we were needing more users than our QuickBooks license was capable of handling. Whereas NetSuite is capable of handling a much larger number of users. And then because we were using the desktop version, QuickBooks made it much more difficult for. We've got a lot more staff that's traveling now, especially with coming out of the pandemic. We're kind of getting back in the swing of things there, and so the ability to be mobile and communicate. NetSuite's cloud-based system has been huge for us. It makes it much easier to kind of get that data. If we've got a salesperson at a dealership and the dealer wants to place an order with it while the salesman's there, they don't have to send an email and have somebody back at the office enter in an order. They can log in right there with an internet connection in a NetSuite, enter the order and know that it's going to be taken care of right there while they're there. And awesome. And then as we get bigger, of course, too, and we're doing more and more complex things around inventory and warehouse management. NetSuite has a lot of tools around that we're still kind of, like you said, we just started with NetSuite this year, so we're still transitioning into some of the more complex capabilities of NetSuite. But there's just so much potential within NetSuite that we are still kind of trying to take it one project at a time. But it's nice to know that those capabilities are there when we're ready to implement them.
Love it. That's great. We have some hellos coming in right now. A hello from the UK, from Nigeria, from Boston, from Los Angeles, and a few others trickling in here, Ireland. Thank you all so much for tuning in. We're happy to have you, especially everyone who's tuning in from all corners of the globe. We love to see it. So keep shouting out, keep saying hello, keep asking any of your questions, and we'll get to them at the end of the conversation. And speaking of all corners of the globe, although you guys do distribute all over the world, you actually make all of your products right here in the United States. So what are the pros and cons of a localized supply chain like this, Justin?
Yeah, absolutely, Kendall. So, I would say we'll start off with the cons. Because, I depending upon the industry, I don't know that there are a whole lot. For what we do, it can be cost. But, kind of we ran the numbers, and for the majority of our products, really what we found is, the price may be cheaper, but if you take into account all the soft costs, it really comes out to be a little more cost neutral. So comes to advantages, I think it's really has a lot to do with flexibility and speed. So as a smaller company, one of the things that we've been able to really do well, and I think has really helped propel our success, is to be able to quickly pivot and adjust to changes in the market and changes in the industry. And a lot of that wouldn't be possible overseas if we were doing, a lot of the production and stuff overseas. For example, it's super nice. Most of our suppliers are actually within probably an hour drive from our shop. And so it's very nice to be able to drive out and sit down with somebody with a physical part and say, hey, this is what I'm trying to do. Can you do it? And then we can go out on their floor and say, and look at something, try something out, see if it works. If it doesn't work, try something else. And you're not trying to air freight parts back and forth. It just makes communication a lot easier and more agile.
Yeah, of course. I mean, and there, we didn't need agility more than we have over the past year and a half, right? Like this has been the year of constant change, and businesses constantly having to adapt and pivot to those changes. So, a lot of companies face supply chain issues, with closures and with the pandemic, and still ports being backed up. Would love to hear how you guys were impacted, and then how your approach, like how your localized supply chain benefited you during this time.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up, because I don't want to say that we haven't had our supply chain issues, because we absolutely have been affected. This year we generally don't operate on a back order. We generally keep everything in stock, and that's part of, again, the customer satisfaction, just getting people the parts that they want as soon as possible. But we've seen just record back orders. Almost all of our products currently are on back order. But I can tell you, and it goes to what you're saying, just a lot of supply chain issues and demand. We've been growing 80% year over year for the past 5-6 years, and it's starting to catch up to us a little bit. But to go back to how our local supply chain has helped with that is, when there are changes, I think we've been able to manage those much quicker than we would have, overseas. And, if a product gets delayed on a truck here locally, you're probably talking about a day or two. As you mentioned, if we were getting it from overseas on a sea container, I know we have friends in the industry and other companies that have had stuff stuck on a sea container for months.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that makes sense. Well, we're all coming out of this, and hopefully, we look back on this, I don't know how long from now, and we're all better prepared for any major changes like this in the future. Fingers crossed that never happens again. But
absolutely,
the right systems, processes in place is definitely make it a little bit easier to deal with. Thank you, Justin, for sharing that. That's all my questions for today, but I want to open it up to questions from the audience. We have some coming in here. Again, some more hellos coming in from Lagos, Nigeria, from England, from San Rafael. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much again for tuning in. Keep sending your hellos. Keep asking any questions that you have. We have a couple more minutes here, Justin. Not too long, but I want to make sure I get to some of these questions from the audience. Okay, I like this one. So through what channels do you sell, and how does your success differ across those channels? Absolutely.
So I would say our main channel by far is our e-commerce, our website. And then close seconds, actually probably our dealer distributor network. So through that, we do sell some on eBay and Amazon, a few products. But what we found is it's very product dependent, whether the product will be successful on some of the platforms like Amazon or the Walmart.com, eBay. And you really just have to, again, it kind of goes back to like the marketing, try it out, see what works for you.
Yeah.
You know, we used to have all of our products listed on Amazon and eBay, and Amazon is very good for a number of products. And one of the nice things about Amazon is it standardizes listings. So anybody selling product X has the same listing. And that can be very good for some products, you know, more commodity type products. But what we found, for at least for our products, with being more specialized, people looking, you know, when they're looking for tap performance, they're looking for our product specifically.
Yeah.
They're not looking for a pair of socks or something that could be more generic. And so some of Amazon's more rigid structures and stuff like that wasn't leading to a very good customer experience. We're having a lot of customers confused by the listings and things like that, and they'd end up getting the wrong product. And so it just didn't end up being the best solution for some of our products. Now, other products it works fantastic for. Air filters and some of those things we still sell on Amazon. It works great.
Yeah.
For some of our other products, it just wasn't a good fit.
Interesting. Great point. I think we're at the top of the hour here. So we only have, I think, time for one more question. I like this one that came in just now. This is from Charles out of Los Angeles. What's the most challenging and rewarding part about being an entrepreneur?
Absolutely. So, yeah, I think they can be one and the same a little bit. You know, challenging and rewarding in the fact that the decisions you make are ultimately going to determine your success. So your fate is kind of in your own hands, which can be very rewarding, especially when things are going well, but can be very challenging, you know, when things aren't going well, or things that are somewhat out of your control, like COVID, happen. And, you know, the decisions you make are going to be what determines your success or failure. So a little bit of a double-edged sword, but really can go both ways. And another one that I personally, as we're growing and hiring more and more employees, you know, getting to be a part of someone else's life and livelihood and know that you're making a large impact on their life as their employer can be very rewarding, but also very challenging.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. That's a lot of pressure.
Yeah, you know, you get to a certain number of employees, and there's just going to be a lot of varying personalities and opinions, and you know, you have to take all of that into consideration, and just learning to work with a whole variety of different people and different backgrounds, like I said, personalities, opinions, and dealing with all of that, which can be very rewarding, but also very challenging.
Absolutely. Well, Justin, on that note, I think I'm going to wrap things up here. I just wanted to thank you so much for joining us today. This was an awesome conversation. Look forward to all of the growth that's to come from Tab in the future and hearing how NetSuite hopefully helps you get there. So thank you so much again for joining us.
Yeah. Thank you, Kendall.
And as always, I want to thank all of you for tuning in. We wouldn't be here doing this without you. So thank you. Thanks for tuning in, you know, every week. For all of these different conversations, we constantly have different live broadcasts each week. So make sure you give us a follow there if you aren't already, so you can tune into the various conversations that we have with different business leaders and founders and entrepreneurs and people from just all spectrums and walks of life that are sharing their thoughts, their advice, their lessons, and their business guidance for all of you and your journeys too. Thank you so much for tuning in with us today. Give us a follow, and we'll see you next time. Bye.